Arkansas as we get set for the women's elite race. This is the second of 3 stops on the U.S. swing to kick off the World Cup season. They raced just 3 days ago in Waterloo, Wisconsin, and after making an 11-hour drive, all of the riders are here in Northwest Arkansas to tackle a course that everyone is really looking forward to ride on and compete on as well. Here are the standings in the World Cup after just one of 16 races, and these standings mirror the results from Waterloo. This is basically the finish order of the race in Wisconsin. Marianne Vos won a thrilling sprint over Lucinda Brand and Denise Betsema as the Dutch swept the podium in Waterloo just a few days ago. The 3-race U.S. swing will wrap up this coming weekend in Iowa City with the annual World Cup race at the Johnson County Fairgrounds. And as we get things going from Fayetteville, let's hear from some of the top racers, including Sunday's winner in Waterloo, Marianne Vos.
Wat denk je dan richting dat wereldkampioenschap van straks, eind januari?
Ja, nou, eerste wereldbeker. Dus daar ben ik nu mee bezig. En ja, natuurlijk is het heel mooi om dan dit parcours en deze wedstrijd al te hebben gedaan voor januari.
2-on-2, it's possible for Marianne Vos?
Well, I'm going to try my best today, and of course, yeah, it was a fantastic start to get the win in Waterloo. So that's already there, and for today it's going to be hard again. And of course I feel good, but the win of this Sunday doesn't tell everything about today, so it's a new chance for everybody.
Hoe kijk jij terug op dat fantastische duel van zondag?
Ja, dat was wel heel vet. Ik had natuurlijk liever mijn kant op getrokken. Maar nee, het was gewoon denk ik een heel mooie wedstrijd. En een zware wedstrijd ook. En het laat gewoon heel goed zien wat het niveau bij ons is en hoe dicht dat bij elkaar zit.
Looking back at the race in Waterloo, was it the best race ever or almost the best race ever with the women?
It definitely was a very exciting race, and yeah, the best. I mean, it's for everybody different, of course, but I think it's very good that we show in that way how strong the field is and how exciting it can be. And of course, I want to get it my way, but I'm very happy with the race. Yeah.
Het is bijna een skipiste, hè, naar beneden.
Precies, dat gevoel krijg je een beetje. Het is in het bos heel veel naar beneden en ja, dan heb je nog een paar wat steilere klimmetjes. Maar in België zie je toch meer van dat soort klimmen terugkomen dan hier. En dat vind ik altijd wel leuk om te doen, echt steile klimmen. En ja, hier is het wat meer vals plat, zeg maar.
General rehearsal of the world. Is it a track that could be for you at the end of January?
Yes, I hope so. It's a really wide course, another course than we used to be in Belgium. But I like it. It's a little bit uphill, and there is also a big, how you say, downhill track. Yes. So yeah, I like it, but we will see after today. I can tell you more.
Well, Tim, here are the riders coming up and getting set for the start of this race. And when you consider that nobody has competed on this course before, they rode it yesterday in hot, dry conditions, and now we're getting torrential rain. How is that going to impact the race itself?
Well, I think a lot of fans tuning in right now are trying to find out just who those riders are. These long shots show all of the rain falling down on this course in Fayetteville, and we know that so much has gone into the preparation of what the start of the race is going to look like, but you throw a wrench in the works like a massive thunderstorm and just dumping down rain, and it changes everything. So you've got team staff scrambling, you've got event staff scrambling, you've got fans just looking for those umbrellas, you've got other fans just sitting there ready for the show to come to them.
And how about these riders? How are they going to handle this?
Well, I think that you're looking at some riders here who've got a lot of momentum. Blanka Vas right there, the Hungarian rider, one of the youngest, best, most talented, and technically adept riders. She's really excited for what's going to come. This kind of a change in conditions definitely plays into her hands. But I think the range of emotions that you have going through a lot of these riders has to do with what that preparation was like. You know, some riders maintain a very strict schedule pre-race. They get their stuff together, same order every single time, and then you have other riders who are able to handle whatever comes their way, this being one of them.
When you consider the features of the course, which we'll see once the race starts, but the course plus the weather, who does the race favor today?
Well, I think we're going to see that really show itself pretty early on, but that shot right there, Lucinda Braun, Track Factory Racing, she stands out as someone who I think is really looking forward to the hills. We heard Betsema mention the uphill sections. A strong, powerful rider who's able to maintain a really high power output is going to be at a big benefit on this course. You know, it's the first time racing for anyone here, so it's really a clean slate. But when you look at the overall structure of the course, the hills, the long straight stretches, it will benefit someone with a lot of physical power.
It's been pouring rain here for the last few hours. It was beautiful yesterday. Sunny, warm, dry, just a gorgeous fall day. And the rain moving in this morning. It's supposed to stick around the entire day. Fortunately, the thunderstorms and some of the heavier cells moved just west of here about an hour ago. So, according to the forecast, we're just supposed to get rain, although heavy at times, throughout the remainder of the day during the women's race as well as the men. And that's good news because that means we wouldn't have any delays, which otherwise would occur with lightning and a thunderstorm. If it's just rain and wind, they'll still race. And for some context, rain at cyclocross actually adds to the atmosphere and the racing. It's like snow at Lambeau Field or wind at Wrigley. It's just part of the culture.
Exactly. This is it. This is what people live for. And when it is a dry and dusty course, it seems boring on the face of it. You can have the best racing ever out there, but it's just missing that other element, and rain brings that into the play. You've got U.S. National Champion Clara Honsinger here from Cannondale Cyclo-cross World. She's one of those riders with the big power and the physical engine who's looking forward to this course, and also a big fan of the rain, so she's going to be happy. You know, one of the things that happens with a big change in weather like this is tire selection. Really important to have a full set of mud tires, intermediate tires, different pressures. You've got, you have to rely on the history that you know as a rider, but also of the team that you're with. So you've got expert staff members like Stu Thorne, who is right next to Clara there. You've got Lucinda Braun from Baloise Trek Lions. She has an entire squad of her teammates over at Trek ready to help figure out exactly what kind of tire pressure she's looking for. Denise Betsema, the Dutch rider, we heard her in the pre-race interview, looking forward to seeing what she can do today. Joanna Neff, she is really a wild card in this course because I feel like physically it might be big power compared to what she's used to on the mountain bike, but loves these conditions. Anne-Marie Wurst, another Dutch rider, had a great race in Waterloo. She was up in the front group for the entire thing, eventually finishing in 4th, I believe. Blanka Vas, yeah, young rider we're talking about, next to the greatest rider ever to throw a leg over a cyclocross bike, Marianne Vos. Winner last week in Waterloo. And Puck Peters, she's a really young talent, and get those elbows nice and sharp, ready for this start, Steve.
So from Waterloo on Sunday to waterlogged here on Wednesday, as the women are about to commence with the second World Cup race of the season. And the furious start on a soaked pavement that will lead them onto the turf, and a downhill section to get things started on this course, Tim.
Tough start for Marianne Vos on the right-hand side of the screen. She did miss a pedal right in the beginning. Got Blanka Vos there in 3rd, being led through by Joanna Neff. Looks like everyone's getting through upright. trying to figure out how to keep those eyes able to see with the mud being kicked up from the rider in front of you. So it's really good to have your vision for this first fast downhill. Saw an okay start from Claire Hansinger, staying in top 10. Good for her. Jolanda Neff here getting those elbows nice and low for these fast corners. First time through on this course at high speed for all these riders. They're going to want to keep space away from each other. They're going to need to keep eyes on what's coming next in that next corner.
The top riders in the world starting at the front, which is so critical in cyclocross, because being at the front gives you the opportunity to be out front early on, and this is where race-winning moves can develop, but it also prevents you from starting from back in the field where you have to climb over so many racers on what can be tight sections, and there's not a lot of avenues to take around some of the riders. There's just nowhere to go.
And that was a first front row start for Jolanda Neff. She was really starting at the back of each of the courses in Waterloo because of a lack of points, having not raced much cyclocross last year. So now she's got a front row start, and it's clearly paid off, being in second position. Lucinda Brown there in the World Championship stripe, she's sitting back around maybe 12th position. So she's got a little bit of distance to make up, but looks like she's going to be starting to move forward soon.
A lot of the athletes talking about what they enjoy about this course. They said it's a clean course, no rocks protruding through the turf, grass and mud in a lot of sections here, some undulations, definitely hilly, and there's going to be a significant hill that leads them up to the pit area that could be the decisive point on the course. A lot of riders saying that's where race-winning moves could be made.
High-speed descent to start off this lap. I mean, everything is just clearly leg out, trying to keep some balance, trying to figure out what kind of traction you're going to get. Don't forget that this is the first time any of these riders have even seen the course, never mind have done it with rain in the mix. Blanca Vash leading, now being taken over by Marianne Vos there. She's in the yellow and black helmet, number 7, right on the front. Betsema lurking in 3rd position, also having passed Jolanda Neff. Got Emery Verse there, Puck Peters right behind. You've got Lucinda Braun. So I see Sana Kant there a little bit further back. Woo! This is that long uphill section you mentioned, Steve. You can see what kind of pressure that puts on the legs. Jolanda Neff starting to pay the price a little bit for that fast start, but that also gives a great chance for Lucinda Braun to move up. So you can see her just passing some of the best riders in the sport there.
As they continue to ride through the rain on this first lap, this is a 3K course. They will time the first few laps to see how long the entire race is going to be, and then have a sense of just how many laps they have to do to get to 50 minutes, which is the entire course time that they try to shoot for with all of these races.
Yeah, cyclocross is a little bit different. Instead of just starting with a fixed number of laps, it really depends on the condition of the course. Sometimes if it's very high speed, you can fit a lot of laps in. When it slows down with rain like this, it'll definitely make that lap time much longer, so you can only do so many laps in 50 minutes. But Lucinda Braun leading that second group. She's trying to get it back to that front group of 4, being led by Marianne Vos. First time over this little hump here in the middle of the course. This doesn't look like much when you're walking by it, but you can see just how delicate they have to be with those tires to maintain traction.
Marianne Vos, the winner in Waterloo, Wisconsin on Sunday. She won that race in a 3-up sprint around the final corner. On the last lap, she had remained patient and kind of bided her time throughout the race that day, but she's gone right to the front here early on and tried to create a gap a few days later.
Well, I think she's got a really great technique here, because you don't want to have to rely on someone else to figure out, how this course is going to ride. Marianne Vos, she has incredible skills, whether it's technical skills, whether it's race tactics, racecraft. So she's decided that it's best for her to be on the front. She's keeping an eye on what's happening behind her, but she is clearly taking the lead. And I love to see the difference with age and experience. Blanca Vash here, young rider from Hungary, right behind her, and she's really following in the footsteps of the best rider to ever ride a bike and across disciplines. They're both wearing the UCI World Cup leaders jerseys. Marianne Vos obviously for the elite women, and Blanca Vash for the under 23s. So it's really great to see those two riders now taking off in the front.
And a lot of separation happening in groups behind them. But Voss, the leader here, just over 5 minutes in on lap number 1, and the first time up this long run-up. This is quite the series of stairs where they have to throw the bikes over their shoulders and carry all the way up to the top.
That is what makes cyclocross here. So this venue built these stairs solely for this purpose. Lucinda Brand going right up next to and passing Denise Betsema. She's a very strong runner, having done that in her athletic past. But looks like Voss, a little bit of a gap now over Blanca Voss.
Marianne Voss, last week in Waterloo, kind of rode behind some other riders and just sat in the draft. Remained patient throughout the race before sprinting for the win at the end, but a totally different tactic today and trying to open up the gap and create a significant margin here early on, just over half a dozen minutes in.
And this is really a complete opposite play. Before the race, you walk around the course, you see how riders are practicing, learning what the lines might be like, what the conditions are like. And the thought was that Marianne Voss, she was going to be sitting on a wheel. She was going to be watching for a group racing dynamic where it was going to be tactically beneficial to be drafting. Instead, she's off the front, taking this race in command and not waiting for any of that to happen. So Blanca Voss dropping a pair of sunglasses there, obviously getting covered up. You got Puck Peters leading the second group, and little group of 5 there following. We'll get an idea on some of those riders as we look through our lap list here. But that group of 4 starting to come together. Lucinda Brand successfully making it towards the front, keeping herself in the mix. Betsema hanging on there in 4th. But, I think odds-on favorite for this race would be Marianne Voss, and it seems like she's really got some the ability to be flexible with her tactics, starting off the front very aggressively and now getting right in there in second wheel and maintaining control of this group.
So Blanca Voss has come to the front in that white jersey with the green and white helmet. Marianne Voss with the yellow stripes in the helmet. She has slipped into second place. Lucinda Brand, the reigning world champion, now in 3rd. Lucinda Brand rode in a small group with Marianne Voss during most of the race in Waterloo. It was a group of 3 or 4 at any given time throughout most of that event before Voss sprinted ahead at the end for the victory. As they come to the end of lap number 1, it's an 8-minute lap, so 1 lap down here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's Voss, Brand, Betsema, the front 4.
And you've got that Dutch train right behind there. Jaren Kostelein, Ingrid Vandenheiden, and Emery Verst, and Van Anrooy, that young rider from the Netherlands. I chatted with her before the start, and she was really looking forward to her first trip here in the U.S. Really interesting course. Everyone was talking about how this course was specifically built for cyclocross. It had the World Cup and World Championships in mind as it was being designed and developed. And this is really a great chance to look at this course today to get ready for the World Championships in January here in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Tim, what do you think they learned through that first lap that they can apply the rest of the way?
Well, I think a lot of them now have a sense of what traction really looks like. They can feel these corners, and Marianne Voss standing up and hammering once again. This is really unusual for her to take the lead of the race so early on. She's known as being very surgical in her precision and how she wins races. Typically, she's the one who pounces late, lets other people attack, lets other people drive the pace, but instead, Marianne Voss really taking control of this group.
Do you think this is a smart move on her part?
Well, I think that you can never question her ability to make smart decisions on a bike. Like I said, she is someone who maintains an incredible level of respect across disciplines because she shows incredible class, character, speed, power. I mean, she's really just the epitome of what a bike racer can be like.
She's a 7-time world champion in cyclocross, and consider just the last two weeks for her, as she won in Waterloo, as we mentioned on Sunday. But prior to that, she rode the first ever women's Paris-Roubaix just a week prior, finished 2nd there, and then the week before was 2nd at the Road World Championships. So 2 second-place finishes, a win, and going for her 2nd win now in cyclocross in the last 3 days.
And absolutely dominating this descent. You can see those gaps. She's pulling ahead of Lucinda Brand. and Blanca Vosch, excuse me, Lucinda Brand there 4th. Technical skills, bar none, some of the best in the sport, but Blanca Vosch looking really good in 2nd position there. She's in the green, red, and white helmet, her national colors of Hungary. She's in that under 23 leaders jersey and taking the lead ahead of Marianne Vos. This is really a show of force from this young rider. You see Betsema there struggling there. You've got Lucinda Brand on the right-hand side. You got Van Anrooy. You've got Pak Petersens, Anne-Marie Verst. Claire Hansinger tucked into the 2nd group. Some of the riders already just soaking wet, covered in mud. The rain is still coming down in buckets.
Clara Hansinger, by the way, highest placed American after 1 lap. She's just outside the top 15 at this point and just north of 20 seconds down. The Dutch, as expected, dominating. They have 9 of the first 10 places at the front of the race. There are 11 Dutch riders in the field and 54 riders altogether here today in Arkansas.
And Magali Rochette in 7th position. Great start for her. We saw her take the lead in Waterloo, leading for the entire 1st lap into the 2nd. And, I think one of the question marks for her was, how can she maintain that pace for longer? I think this course does benefit her riding style, and she should be able to maintain this front group. She just needs to tack onto the back of this first group of 5. But a little bit of a breath. You got Blanca Vos on the right-hand side, Lucinda Brand coming through in the middle. So they're starting to look at each other a little bit more, knowing a bit more of what to expect. As you mentioned, Steve, you learn a lot in the first lap, especially in cyclocross. You know what the course is like, you know what your bike is riding like. You also know what your competitors look like. So Lucinda Brand, having that first lap under her belt, now decides to go to the front.
Tim, in Waterloo, you kind of got the feeling that even though Voss was riding wheels and hanging back a little bit throughout the day, that she could hit the gas anytime she wanted and drop others. Do you get the feeling we're in the same sort of scenario right now here?
Judging by how she took that first climb at the start of the 2nd lap, yeah, I think that she has that same power. I think she has that same ability to do that. You can see she's in 2nd position. She looks fairly confident and comfortable. You learn a lot of how someone is feeling just by their posture on the bike, and she's showing that she's got a lot to work with today.
And now here's Lucinda Brand, just in front of Marianne Vos, and then a couple of seconds back to the others that we've been highlighting. Blanca Vos, Denise Betsema. But Brand, for the first time, coming to the front in the rainbow jersey as the defending world champion, and coming off that 2nd place finish in Waterloo.
I see that Clara Hansinger has moved into 10th position, so she was leading that 2nd group. Talking about some riders' physical ability, their engine that they work with, their talent that they're able to show. I think that this course will start to pull out riders like Clara, who have incredible engines to work with, and she's starting to move up. Not dealing with the same start that she had in Waterloo, where she was really struggling to get through the field. Looks like she's starting to get to the halfway point of the 2nd lap in great position.
So the 2 Dutch women are leading the way here, Lucinda Brand and Marianne Vos. The Dutch swept the podium in Wisconsin in the season opener. They had swept the podium at the last 2 World Championships and won 8 of the last 9 medals over the previous 3 years at the Cyclo-cross World Championships as well. That is how dominant they are in this sport.
Like the Belgians on the men's side, the Dutch have absolutely dominated, as you mentioned. Lucinda Brand, I look at her wearing those stripes as someone who has just continued to show her rise through the sport. She had a couple close calls with that World Championships beforehand, before finally winning it last year. And now she's got a great start leading this group right now with Marianne Vos. Separation, there's Magali Rochette getting to the front of this group, trying to close that gap. Betsema not showing the legs that I think that she had in Waterloo. Otherwise she would be on that wheel of Vos, but relying on Rochette to close that gap. Looks like Blanca Vos might be paying for that early effort. That's the kind of thing, when you have a new course, Steve, you don't know what that means 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, 40 minutes in. You have no idea what kind of effects it's going to have. And some riders who show, just real clear speed early on pay the price later. And then the alternative is also true. Those riders who have a slower start can start to show that a little bit later on.
And remember, even though they've been riding it the last few days, it's been in warm, dry conditions. Totally different here today and at race speed versus training speed. There's Denise Betsema, number 2. Now remember, she finished in 3rd in Waterloo, but had great form and terrific legs. She was leading early on and definitely was in the mix for the victory until a mechanical issue shuttled her to the back. It was just a great ride to get back up at a podium position, so that was kind of a moral victory for her just to finish in the top 3 after what happened midway through the race.
I think we're going to see some riders dealing with mechanicals throughout the day with the wet conditions, with the mud that we're starting to see. Also, I think there's grass and some of the newer chicanes that have been put into the course. It's a little bit on the longer side. You might see some of that getting into derailleurs. You might see it get into some braking systems. But you can't count on your bike working perfectly on a day like this.
All right, so the second lap, just a few seconds slower than the first, just over 8 minutes for each, and now 4 laps left to go. They've timed the first 2 laps and decided that it is going to be 6 laps in total. That should get us to the 50-minute mark, which is always the target time for the entire race on the women's side. Top 10 separated by 24 seconds. Clara Honsinger, the U.S. champion, highest placed U.S. rider, just outside the top 10 right now in 11th at 27 seconds down.
Got the leg out on this fast right-hand turn. Betsema going right to the fence. Rochette there in 4th. Pak Peters in 5th. Lucinda Brand starting this uphill section. You want to get out of that corner and just stand up to keep the speed going, keep that momentum. Marianne Vos right up alongside Brand. She looks excellent today. Rochette getting around there. Pak Peters in the blue, passing Betsema. So great race now for Rochette. This riding, the center here, where the course has been built in Fayetteville, built for cyclocross, built for the World Cup, built for the World Championships, but also for mountain biking. The really incredible infrastructure in Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas. They want these races. They want to build opportunities for international racing in this area, and this is such a great showcase right now. This course, look at the ribbon of grass through these woods, Steve. I was here as the course was being built a few years ago, and to see it now in real full color like this, with the mud, with the rain, with these riders, is just incredible.
They made some changes to the original design just a few months ago, and to show you how serious they are about getting it right, they didn't just seed the areas to grow grass. They sodded them. They brought in trucks to irrigate it. They wanted to get it right and get it done quickly and in time for this race. And speaking of the entire cycling culture and geography of this region in the mountains of Northwest Arkansas, there have been articles written recently that are now calling it the Disneyland of biking, with the mountain biking, the cyclocross, the gravel, even the road racing opportunities around this region. It is phenomenal.
Oh, believe it. No, absolutely believe it. I've been lucky enough to ride in some of these areas, and it is incredible. Rochette in 3rd position, really doing a great job in this group. You can see when the riders have their heads down the entire uphill, it means that they're giving 100%. They have just absolutely pinned themselves. You see Blanca Vaz looking where she was a little bit earlier, sliding back a little, still a very young rider, learning what she can do with that engine, what she can do with those skills. See Inge Vanderheiden trying to get her way back up to the back wheel of Betsema, but just look at the difference in speed, Steve. Earlier as we were talking, it was inside leg out to the right, to the left, and back to the right, very high speed, and now completely opposite. This is a sit down, push the pedals, climb up and out, back towards the pits. This is incredibly tough riding.
How much of the tough riding is about the course itself, and how much is about the conditions they're riding in?
Well, you can see Voss right there. She's got her glasses still on. She's known for keeping those on until the very last second. Usually when she wins, she takes them off. But, you know, these conditions, I think, are throwing just such a great X factor that you have to deal with. You know, you want to be able to feel good and have everything work perfectly. But when the rain comes and the mud starts to develop, that's just an impossibility, and you have to be able to deal with it. You've got these two riders, long careers behind them. They can use that experience to their benefit. Rochette in third, holding on to a podium spot for now with a small gap over Puck Peters and Betsema right there. But you have to be able to understand, you know what, I can deal with this. I can deal with the chain that's skipping. I can deal with the tire that might be going flat. I can deal with mud in my eyes. I mean all those different things happen to you over the years, and watching two of the best riders on any two wheels off the front here is just a great showcase here in Fayetteville.
How do you decide between glasses or no glasses on a day like this with the rain and the mud splashing up? You see Brand going without the glasses, Voss has them on, and I guess there's pros and cons to each, right?
Yeah, well, you know, I actually loved starting with glasses, using it to avoid getting spray from someone else, and then once you're off by yourself, or you know, you're riding with just one other, you can kind of figure it out. But I had also gone to bed quite a few nights after big races like this, unable to sleep because I have so much thin in my eye that you know, you pay the price for having no glasses. But you know, it's really personal preference. People choose either one.
So two at the front, two chasing here, and then Denise Betsema right here rounding out the top five. And then a significant gap back to the rest of the field at this point. Lap 3 of 6, so approaching the midpoint of this race in the rain in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I'm interested to see what Rochette's going to do there. If you're solo third place, you got the two riders here dueling at the front. You know, you got to figure out, am I going to ride with someone? Maybe it's Puck Peters, maybe it's Betsema, kind of a resurging pace from behind. But you need to figure that out because there's still a long ways to go in this race. 4 laps to go. So it looks like she's being caught by Puck Peters and Betsema now. But you know, these two riders on the front, they're not going to continue to push this pace unnecessarily. I think they're going to try and maintain a high speed out there, but not get into too much trouble where they have to pay that price later. But they don't want that group of 3 to catch them from behind. So you see Brand here on the front. They're kind of they're in an alliance right now. They're able to work together. There's not a ton of drafting necessarily, but they're just able to look back and see, you know what, we still have this gap. It's just a two-woman race.
In Wisconsin, we did see Brand and Voss in small groups like this at the front, where they did have others that caught up at various points in the race. They would then proceed to lose them again. So you're thinking today, though, they don't want to be caught. They don't want to take that chance?
I don't think so, because you never know if you're going to have a bike problem. You never know if you're going to get a flat. You know, talking about being in a group, I was chatting with Sven Nys. You know, he's the former world champion, winningest rider on a cyclocross bike in the male side. But he works with the Baloise Trek Lions, so he's helping Lucinda Brand figure out how she's going to try and win these races. And he was mentioning that it's important to race against Voss with help. And last week in
Lucinda Brand goes down in the corner.
Yeah, just tucking that front wheel. Slick conditions. Looks like it looked like Lucinda was getting a little bit comfortable with how the tires were working in the mud. The traction was fairly consistent in other parts of the course. Just in that corner, it's getting a little bit of a hot spot, a little bit slick, so she paid the price and hitting the ground up very quickly, though, right back on that wheel of Voss.
So just a small gap now between Voss at the front and Brand behind her. It was already going to be a tough spot for Lucinda Brand, because if things stay the way they are, she doesn't want to sprint against Marianne Voss at the end of this race. She wants to lose her at some point on the course, and she was doing all that work, and now she's got to chase back on, using a lot of energy here that at some point she needs to try and go from distance to get Voss out of the way and not have it come down to a sprint.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's what we were talking about, was how Lucinda Brand was going to try and beat a rider like Voss last weekend in Waterloo. You needed help because Voss is so good at following the wheel. She's she's so strong at knowing just how quickly she needs to go to stick on that wheel, stay out of trouble, and then wait for the sprint. You know, today, obviously, that small mistake by Brand is giving Vos an incredible opportunity. You can see she's really pushing that pace still, and that 1 second gap has turned into 3, maybe 4. That is going to be real alarm bells for Brand. She's going to have to close that quickly.
25 minutes deep into a 50-minute race, lap number 4 of 6. So over the midpoint of this first ever UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We are just about 30 minutes south of the Missouri state line, just over 100 miles east of Tulsa, Oklahoma. A very remote area here in the Ozark Mountains of northwestern Arkansas, but a beautiful part of the United States and a terrific area for biking of all kinds.
We have Vos going for some fresh grass on the right-hand side. So that means to me that that shows me that the grass is getting soft, it's getting soggy, it's getting wet, and trying to find harder sections to get traction and lose a little bit of that friction. So Vos started to use some of that skill. We talked about her tactical awareness and racecraft. So she's looking for better places to ride. It's a great attribute to have. And she's clearly showing that she wants to win this thing from the front. You know, it's funny to have a little bit of perspective. At Paris-Roubaix, she was solo for the last 20K trying to chase Lizzie Armistead, who had a lead that she had built over the last 35K. Incredible speed, power, ability to ride on your own. She doesn't need a draft to win. However, she's also able to do that too. So we've got Vos with a lot of different tools to use within her toolbox to try and win this race.
And what a few weeks for Vos. She was in tears when she finished second at the Road World Championships, then went on to another second place the following week at that Paris-Roubaix, and came right from the Velodrome in Roubaix over to the United States, and finally climbed that next step of the podium, finished on top to get the victory in Waterloo, and now going for back-to-back wins here in Fayetteville.
Yeah, so right there, Steve, that's called tucking in that front wheel. You can see how it's turned inward, and that just means that she lost traction on the front tire just for a second, but it's really hard to pick it back up again once you start going straight down. Vos now still maintaining that small gap, still pushing the pace. Brand looks like she's got it fairly under control, at least in terms of maintaining the gap that Vos has. But I'm very impressed by the technical skill that Vos is showing on the descents. I mean, that is just such high-class racing, really great bike handling. All these riders have it in some level, but Vos definitely showing she's got fitness and bike handling right now.
And the ability to go straight from the road back here to cyclocross, her bike handling skills, her race savvy, her tactics, acumen. She's just so comfortable and experienced in every situation. It's hard to find a path or an angle where you can beat her.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of weakness to exploit. Brand almost out of gears on that uphill. So it's steep. It's obviously now softening, which means that it's much harder to maintain a little bit of speed. Vos, she has those glasses right now deflecting the water from the ground up, not just the rain falling down. You know, in cyclocross, you got to remember that the rain falling out of the sky doesn't have sand in it, so you want that to help wash out those eyeballs. But the rain, the moisture coming up off the ground has sand all over it, so that's why you want to kind of keep that out of your eyes.
No one going for a bike change as of yet. Does that surprise you?
No, I think a lot of this course is grass covered, so there's not a lot of sand that's going to be able to get into that mud. So usually you want to switch when your chains start to skip. You know, you're grinding a little bit of the gears. So what I would say probably next lap or the lap after, we're going to see more of that. But Brand starting to struggle. I see that high pressure that Vos is putting down is putting Lucinda Brand under a lot of pressure, and you start to make small mistakes after that.
Yeah, Vos sensing that this is the opportunity about half an hour in over the midpoint of the race where she can kind of put things away if she maintains this pace. Lucinda Brand struggling, and Marianne Vos hoping to win her second World Cup race in the last 3 days.
All the way to the fence. She's definitely trying to find fresh grass. You want to stay out of the mud. I love to see a lot of change. Like, you want to be able to not rely on, oh, I did this line last lap, I'm going to have to do it every lap after that. She is searching for traction. She's searching for places to ride. Bit of an update from a little bit deeper in the field. Clara Honsinger moving up to 7th position, so she's on her way forward. She's been on podiums before in cyclocross. She's catching Magali Rochette in 6th. And that is great for those two North Americans. So you've got the 4 Dutch, excuse me, with Blanca Vosch in 3rd. And now you've got Honsinger and Rochette there in 6th and 7th.
Clara Honsinger was also the highest placed American in Waterloo, Wisconsin on Sunday. She finished in 12th place, a minute 37 behind the winner Voss.
And another rider sneaking into the top 10, Katarina Nash. You know, this is the final event for the Cliff Bar Pro Team. 20 years they've been supporting the women's mountain bike squad, men's squad, road, mountain bike, cyclocross, triathlon, downhill, literally everything. And an incredible rider, Katarina Nash, World Cup winner, podium, World Championship podium. An incredible rider, and she's starting in the back without a ton of points. Also having an incredible few weeks of jumping into different races to really benefit riders with a wealth of experience like that.
No break in the cycling season, from the road, the mountain bike, now into cyclocross, one discipline to the next. And Marianne Voss looks over her right shoulder to get a sense of exactly where Lucinda.
Speaking of a big week, I know that Katarina Nash is going to be racing the epic off-road race here in Bentonville, Arkansas on the weekend, and then heading to Iowa. So quite a few different bikes you're going to have to ride, and different conditions. I think that's a 50-miler on Saturday before heading up to Iowa for the World Cup on Sunday.
Iowa City, the final of the 3 stops on this U.S. swing that kicks off the World Cup campaign. 16 races in all this year after the season was truncated because of the pandemic a year ago. And now here is Voss as she's riding into the pits, and for the first time it looks like we're going to get a bike change.
Clean bike change right there, coming back in just ahead of Brand. This gives Brand a great chance.
And that's where she crashed.
To reconnect, exactly. And Voss going right to that power position now. She's going to watch Brand from behind. She's going to know exactly how she's riding, what she looks like, you know, what lines she's choosing. This is a big advantage for Voss to tuck in right behind Brand on a fresh new bike. She had a chance to take a breath. She's still going to be in control even if she's in 2nd position, and this is really one of the tricks that Voss has always employed in her career, is just to be able to do this. She watches from behind to know when she can attack, when she can pounce.
And for Lucinda Brand, it's good news, bad news. The good news, she's closed the gap on Marianne Voss, but now she's got her in that position just behind her where she knows she's going to be attacked at some point. You know that it's coming, but there's not much you can do about it. And you can only just hope and just wait and see.
There's Nash right there with Jolanda Neff and Sharon Van Enroy. So quite a big difference here in this group. That's a 20-year-old on the right-hand side, just over 40 on the far left, and Jolanda Neff, Olympic mountain bike champion. So we've got, I think the women's race here in Fayetteville is just second to none, and it is clearly, I just love watching women's racing. There is so much dynamic battles. You know, last week in Waterloo, watching the final couple laps come down to the final turn. You know, seeing the tactics and the ability to take risks and seeing it pay off, you know, win and lose. I mean, storylines just write themselves.
2 laps left to go for the leaders, coming up on 34 minutes into this 50-minute race. We saw Jolanda Neff a moment ago. You mentioned how she won the gold medal in the Olympics on the mountain bike in Tokyo just this past August. Well, what a story she has been throughout the summer. After suffering a series of really difficult injuries, took her off the bike. She managed to recover from those injuries and then win that Olympic gold medal. But coming here to the U.S., her first time on a cyclocross bike was this past Friday when she won the C2 Trek Cup race in Waterloo, Wisconsin, and then raced the World Cup on Sunday. And remember, it's not just that she was racing cyclocross for the first time in 2 years, or that she was training for the first time in 2 years. It was the first time she was on a cyclocross bike in 2 years this past weekend.
You gotta love that ability to pick up something that you haven't seen in a while and then make yourself at home on it. She's an incredible rider. You see this attack by Blanca Vache, trying to get away from Peters and Magali Rochette. And there's Clara Honsinger. We're seeing her on camera catching onto the back of Rochette. So that puts her she's still in 7th right now, but that'll make her in the group of 5th. And moving on up, hopefully having a podium in sight. You know, talking about the World Championships coming this January, as a home country, development is really key to be able to build out a roster of riders who can line up at an international race like that. The Mud Fund has been supporting USA Cycling and the development programs there. The Olympic Development Academy, another way that riders can get involved in cyclocross. I know that those riders have been going, I think they have a 4-race calendar this season. But, you know, it's really important to be able to line up like that. And Clara Honsinger, she's really, you know, the poster child for what cycling development can be like. You've got a rider who's racing at the front, getting onto World Cup podiums, racing all over the world. You've got a ton of young riders all around the country watching a rider like Clara Honsinger, hoping to someday line up in races just like her.
The World Championships coming to Fayetteville, such a huge deal. It's only going to be the 2nd time that event has ever been held on U.S. soil. The first was 8 years ago in Louisville, Kentucky. This is a sport that is very European-centric, and typically the World Championships and most of the World Cup races are held in Europe. It's just been over the last few years we've started to see these U.S. stops kicking off the season. First in Waterloo, Wisconsin, and Iowa City, and now, in addition to those two, adding Fayetteville to the mix this year.
Well, and Cross Vegas, that was a World Cup as well. And racing the World Championships in Louisville, Kentucky is a highlight of my career, and it's something that I'll remember forever. Just to be able to ride around that course, seeing people from all over the country who've come together for that big get-together, inviting all the riders from around the world to join. And a little bit of a different story in Louisville. We had to fit 2 full days of racing into one because of an oncoming flood. Long story there, but suffice to say we had a great event, and really looking forward to this winter. Want all the fans to come back to Fayetteville to support these riders, see it for themselves in person. You see these really hardy fans out there. It is absolutely dumping once again, Steve. The rain is just coming down so strong. You know, there are a lot of riders on the men's side sitting back in their cars, in their RVs, just wondering, oh, how is our race going to go?
Now, because the women are eating up this course, something fierce right now, and it has been raining hard most of the day. I think, though, right now we're in a spell where it may be raining even harder than we've seen it over the last few hours.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely picking up, and any Caddyshack references out there, please throw them our way. Got a lot of great racing happening on course. You have Lucinda Brand on the front, Marianne Vos just dropping those glasses with her mechanic in the pit, and doing it with a lot of grace and elegance. She just handed him over there. Vos dabbing just over the top. Really tough little conditions here. Both riders really now understanding all the intricacies of this course. Vos responding to that pace change by Brand. That's one of the flatter uphill sections. It looks like Honsinger moving into 3rd position. This is the front of that chase group. She has gone ahead and tucked her way, has run her way through that group, and now she is in a podium position. So I love the fact that we've got a rider on the move going forward and loving these conditions out there. Honsinger moving her way into a podium position is great.
So she's 21 seconds down, but Lucinda Brand doing everything she can to try and drop Marianne Vos right here. And this is really the only tactic she has in her bag to win the race. She's got to get rid of Vos at some point so it doesn't come down to a sprint where Vos would be favored. And she's trying to do it on the penultimate lap of the day. But it's easier said than done.
Brand leading onto this section. That is actually paving stones, man-made, put down here as part of different course selections for mountain biking, for cyclocross. And it looks like Honsinger has been caught and passed by Peters and Denise Betsema. So those two riders now taking advantage of what must have been Clara Honsinger really extending herself to gain that group. Now maybe a small mistake on the little roller section with the 90-degree turns. And she's now back in 5th, but definitely a battle for that final podium position.
These are the front two, Lucinda Brand and Marianne Vos. And that is the gap back to 3rd place. Pretty significant here, 40 minutes in on the second to last lap.
Yeah, these two riders really going to be battling for the win, but that second group, lots of racing still to come there. So excited to see how that's going to go. Vos just watching, waiting. Brand almost coming to a standstill at the top. I love the gamesmanship. They've got a lot of history built over the last few years, but also over the last weekend, and a lot at stake. You've got the UCI World Cup leaders jersey on Vos's shoulders in number 7, the yellow and black helmet. Brand in the now very dirty rainbow stripes in the white helmet. So those two riders really just going head to head. You know, if anyone's out there interested in laying down some bets, you've got less than a lap to figure out where you're going to land. But you've got a whole race to play with so far. But Betsema and Peters right there. Peters in blue on the right, number 9. Betsema number 2 on the left.
Well, if you wanted to take it to Las Vegas, where, as you mentioned, Cross Vegas was the first ever World Cup in the U.S. back in September of 2015, I think the odds makers would put most of the money on Marianne Vos, considering her prowess, her strength in winning the sprint in Waterloo over Lucinda Brand on Sunday, and the fact that she's looked so good here today. And even though she slips a little in the corner there, she's in a perfect spot on Brand's wheel here.
And if you're keeping count, that means they're equal in small mistakes. So good to see them kind of coming even once again. Now watch this as they get back onto the finish straight. So this is how the race is going to finish next time through. So this is where someone like Vos is kind of playing with where are my wheels going to go? How am I going to get some momentum going into the final stretch? How am I going to play this final finish? And because it's the first race ever, that's kind of one of those things that doesn't really get figured out. You know, you can't look at tape of last year's race to figure out how the finish has gone.
Well, at this point, they've seen it, several laps now. Have they decided what they're going to do in their heads?
I don't know, because right here is where you're going to make your final push. That's an uphill stretch, kind of turning to the right as they drop down into this finish straight. A head-to-head sprint side by side is one thing, but can you gain an advantage on that final climb? Can you do that corner faster? Those are the kinds of questions that you need to play through in your head and figure out if you have confidence in that or not.
Final lap for the 2 leaders.
It's like Hansinger in 5th, just off the back of Puck Peters there. So still a great finish in 5th place, obviously, but not the podium position she wants to be in. Let's see if we can catch up with Brand and Vos as they're on the downhill. They've just gone through the finish line a second ago. Back into the pit, there's a bike swap.
That's Sydney McGill of Canada getting a new bike. Clara Hansinger still hanging tough. Top 5, 25 seconds down. Blanca Vos has slipped behind the American Hansinger. She's now in 6th on the opening lap. Remember, she was one of the early leaders of this race.
Yeah, we're just getting a shot of the riders here a little deeper in the field. Picking up Brand once again. They're coming down the descent. So we'll see. This is that short uphill section. Looks like Vos is already, Vos is just behind.
This is the biggest gap they've had.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to have missed that, everyone. It looks like we've got Vos here now in 2nd position. She's trying to get her way back up there. She is covered in mud. She definitely went down on the right-hand side. There's Denise Betsema in 3rd. Puck Peters in 4th. Huge change at the front here. Clara Hansinger still in 5th. She can get herself back in the game. She'll have a chance at the podium position once again. Blanca Vos right behind her, but huge advantage for Lucinda Brand right now, knowing that Vos has hit the ground.
This is a major opportunity for the reigning world champion, Lucinda Brand. Now at the front, Vos with the biggest margin to the front that we've seen all day, as she trails Lucinda Brand now on this final lap and has a lot of time to try and make up.
Brand, great chance great chance now. You want to win because you're beating the riders you're racing against. You want to win because you've got the preparation and the form and the talent you're working with. You know, head-to-head with someone like Marianne Vos. Vos led through the descent. We saw them go through the finish line, start the descent back down. So it looks like it was a mistake on her part at a high speed on the right-hand turn. Big descent there. So Brand taking advantage of that and now turning just a couple seconds into a solid lead. Vos right side foot off the pedal. You can see that right side there covered in mud. It's just what happens. Cyclocross is full of ups and downs, and you have to take advantage where you can. Brand now starting that long hill.
This is the big hill that all the racers said could be a decisive point on the course for the race, leading up to the pits where it flattens out. Can Vos catch her at this point on the final lap?
I think now it's a question of whether or not Betsema is going to catch her. You know, when you crash, it really throws you for a loop. You have to restart, reset, get your head back in the game. Betsema trying to take advantage of that, maybe even getting herself back into second position. Her race was pretty much over earlier, and even a podium position was under threat from Hansinger and Puck Peters. So now Betsema back in for a podium spot. There's Puck Peters in blue and Hansinger in fifth.
Lucinda Brand, the leader, trying to hold off Marianne Vos.
That climb very slow right now. Lots of power needed to get even up and over. Vos still trying to find that fresh grass to work with, but Betsema solid on the left, now on the right, and you can see the difference in Vos. She's really swinging those shoulders. She's really struggling because she has been pinned this whole time trying to get back to this rider, Lucinda Brand.
That's the distance from Brand back to Vos, and now Betsema coming around Marianne Vos into second place. And this is the second straight race where Betsema has dragged herself up back near the front late in the race. She did it in Waterloo after a mechanical issue when she was leading early, then dropped back. She regained contact with the front later in the final laps, and she's doing it here once again as she was dropped early, is now back up near the front, and currently in second place as Vos slips to third, but it looks like Lucinda Brand may be riding away with this one now.
The fortune has definitely gone in Lucinda Brand's favor here. She's looking back, doesn't even see a rider at all. That gap is now an entire straightaway behind. Betsema overtaking Vos, but it's going to be really difficult for her to get back up to Brand. Brand looks so solid in first position. Betsema still moving forward. We'll get a look at Vos dabbing over that once again. Looks like might be Hansinger there now in fourth. So this is a good shot for her to get back to the podium. But Vos now going backwards through the field. Very different from what we saw just one lap ago.
Well, at this rate, if things ended the way they are right now, we would have the same three on the podium from Waterloo, just a different order. As in Wisconsin on Sunday, it was Vos, Brand, and Betsema, 1, 2, 3. Right now it's Brand, Betsema, and Vos in that order, running first, second, and third on the final lap in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Trying to find the clean lines, trying to keep that bike upright, not wanting to make a mistake now. When you've got a small lead like this, but momentum on your side, it's important to just try and maintain. You don't want to take these big risks, put yourself in any kind of difficulty. You also don't want to make a mistake and get a flat. I mean, a section like this with the stones, they've done a lot of work to make sure that this is cross bike friendly. These tires are incredibly delicate tubulars, handmade. Sidewalls are very thin, definitely not like any kind of mountain bike tire. So you don't want to have a mistake late in a race like this, especially when you're in the lead. But Betsema clearly riding away from Vos. Vos, her legs really on fire. Now she's got a completely different threat from behind. Stars and Stripes of Claire Hansinger in fourth. Hansinger has a great chance of getting close to her, but she's missing that big uphill. That was earlier in the lap, so without that climb to use it to her advantage, she's going to have to try and overtake someone who is arguably one of the best bike handlers in this sport. So it's going to be a tall order for her to do that.
But the closest and most exciting race may be for the final step of the podium between the American Hansinger and the decorated veteran Marianne Vos. They are right here. Vos in the yellow helmet, Hansinger in the white, up the stairs. Can she catch the 7-time world champion? Clara Hansinger, the top American, has a chance to finish on the podium in the first ever World Cup in Fayetteville on her home soil.
You've got 19-year-old Puck Peters right behind her in 5th position, not giving up that fight. That Dutch rider is really close to Hansinger.
Oh, look at this. Here comes Hansinger around Marianne Vos.
Look at that power. Hansinger just standing up and pedaling over the last part of that climb shows that she has a lot of gas still left in her tank, and she's overtaking Vos. Vos head down trying to keep on Hansinger's wheel, but Hansinger now, she's on a different plane. She is absolutely flying around this course. She could even get closer to Betsema in 2nd position.
Here is the leader and a likely winner at this point, Lucinda Brand, who was 2nd to Vos in the first World Cup of the season in Wisconsin on Sunday. Won the World Championships last year, also won this World Cup overall season series. And now, on this final lap, after crashing earlier in the race, it looks like she's going to ride away to a solo win.
Right there, Clara, you got her, come on, go get her, Clara.
Incredible finish for the world champion. She's still building that lead now, knowing that Betsema is on her own in 2nd position, starting to realize she's got a clear gap. She's just trying to get around here cleanly. But that battle for 3rd really coming down to the line between Hansinger and Vos.
Will we have the same 3 on the podium from Wisconsin, or will we have an American instead of the 7-time world champion? That's what's on the line, that's what's at stake, and that's what's about to be decided here in Fayetteville. Lucinda Brand, after fighting off the challenge from Marianne Vos, the reigning world champion is going to win the first ever World Cup in Fayetteville, Arkansas, here on this rainy Wednesday in the Ozark Mountains. And Denise Betsema, her fellow Dutch rider, takes solo 2nd. And now for 3rd, it's going to be the American Clara Hansinger. The U.S. national champion fights off the 7-time world champion Marianne Vos, and Hansinger on the podium here on U.S. soil in Arkansas.
Marianne Vos coming across the line in 4th. You've got Puck Peters in 5th and the young Blanca Vos in 6th. Great finish from those riders. Clara Hansinger really turning on that last few laps, getting back up to the 2nd group, riding right through it, losing it once again, but then having to claw back, catch Marianne Vos, and beat her to the line. Magali Rochette here in 7th position. This bodes well for the World Championship, Steve. You know, as an American on home soil to line up at the World Championships, you dream of a warm-up race like this. And I use warm-up with a lot of liberty here. This is
a precursor, let's say.
Exactly. In the rain, in reverse here, coming through. Another Dutch rider coming in for 8th.
Now the course and the elements certainly did deliver. A thrilling race here today in Northwest Arkansas. And almost on cue as the race ends, so does the rain. As it stopped for the first time in the last 3 hours.
I think there's been a run on mud boots in the local stores right here. Here's Katarina Nash coming through. A top 10 finish at a World Cup. Hey, let me just drop into the World Cup and see how I do. And we'll call that a top 10. Sharon Van Anrooy in 11th.
The top 10 separated by a minute 46. It was just a minute 21 from 1st to 10th in Wisconsin, so a bigger spread here today in the rain of Arkansas.
And Yolanda Neff there in 12th. Really a who's who of the sport. Road, mountain bike, cyclocross, all of it. You have young Italian national team rider coming through here for a nice top 15. Van Empel in 13th, just across the line. That's Gaia Railini, who also had a 15th place in Waterloo. She's going to match that here. And And that is Inger van der Heijden, former world champion, under 23. You know, when they say the world's coming to Fayetteville, they mean it. It's quite the spread of nations, great representation. You know, this is the first time you've had a World Cup lineup where the women's race is bigger than the men's. You've got a more diverse group of riders from different countries. Shows the quality of racing across the sport. Alicia Frank, Katie Klaus, top 20, improving on her finish last week in Waterloo.
And now let's hear from the winner today in Fayetteville, the reigning world champion, Lucinda Brand of the Netherlands.
Lucinda Brand, wat een gevecht is met dit geweest.
Ja, zo zie je wat weersomstandigheden ineens de boel anders kunnen maken.
Op een bepaald moment had je 10 seconden achter Marianne. Je komt er dan toch terug bij.
Ja, klopt. Ik maakte een klein schuivertje. En ja, daar profiteerde ze uiteraard een beetje van. En ik dacht gewoon van ja, ik moet gewoon mijn eigen vaste ritme houden. En dan als ik sterker ben, dan kom ik wel weer terug. En anders dan is Marianne gewoon sterker dan dat ik ben. En gelukkig kon ik terugkomen. En toen moest ik natuurlijk ook nog van de afkomen. Ik wist niet echt hoe, want ja, het leek niet echt dat ze het moeilijker had dan ik het had. Maar ineens in de afdaling had ze een schuifje gemaakt, dus zo zei ze. Dus ja, toen moest ik natuurlijk vol doorgaan.
Je wint de tweede wereldbeker in de Verenigde Staten, dat is goed hè?
Ja, absoluut, zeker. Dat is hartstikke goed. Het is gewoon een hartstikke goed begin zo om eerst tweede en nu eerste te worden. Ja.
Richard, one more question in English. You are very happy about this performance probably. The second World Cup is for you.
Yeah, definitely happy, and it was a tough race. So did Sunday, but totally different conditions, and I'm happy that I could take the victory today.
Coming back at the end of January to take the win in the World Championships?
Yeah, I do, and I also take some wet weather with me then.
Good idea, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Now, Lucinda Brand thought she was up against it for most of this race, with Marianne Vos sitting on her wheel or leading her, wondering what she was going to do to prevent a second consecutive second-place finish to Marianne Vos. But then things changed late in the race. Brand opened it up, and she gets her first win of this World Cup season.
This shows a little bit of what the riders that we're working with out there in the mud. At the start, though, the rain was just dumping down, fairly fresh. Fast start, Jolanda Neff there in the middle with the pink helmet, and Puck Peters in blue on the right-hand side of her. But that was when the rain was just starting to come down, Steve.
And this was the battle for the front of the field. Jolanda Neff, the reigning mountain bike Olympic champion from Tokyo, was one of the early riders to burst ahead. But then it was Marianne Vos who came to the front and really started to drill it.
Yeah, and you see Brand there tucked back in fourth position. Some of the other riders who made it into the top five, not even really in sight yet. But Brand, Vos setting up for a battle, Blanca Vos right behind. And this is still when you could see who the riders were. Because the mud was still starting to be developed throughout the day. But one-on-one battle at the front. Brand, small mistakes a little bit, gave Vos a glimpse at what could be. Still in control there in second position. Thought Vos was really going to be able to use some of that power to her benefit. Brand, there's that mistake. Slipping out in the corner, just tucking that front wheel in.
And a lot of people probably thought at that point this race was over. Vos was looking good, and now she was going to be able to get a gap.
Well, I think that's kind of written into anything Vos does. When she's at the front and has an advantage, you will never think that anyone can get a hold of her again. But Brand did a great job giving Vos that small advantage because of the mistake, continuing to push on this very difficult climb that got harder and harder throughout. But regaining control of the front here, Vos getting in for a bike change and coming back out. Now that group being back together. Brand right back to the front again.
And this bike change ultimately did not pay off for Marianne Vos, as shortly thereafter Lucinda Brand opened up this gap, which was the largest of the day that we had seen.
Well, a big mistake by Vos on that fast ascent. You can see on the right side, she's still starting to pick herself up off the ground. Obviously slipping out on that high-speed corner, giving Betsema a chance to get back to the front. And now here's Vos going in for a bike change. We didn't see this earlier, but Vos having to get off of the bike she crashed, re-catch Betsema, while also watching out for the rider just coming into screen on the upper right-hand side in Clara Honsinger. But Brand, clear shot at victory by that mistake by Vos. Here's Honsinger catching. Here's Vos getting caught by Honsinger and overtaking her, moving into third position.
And then Brand high-fiving the spectators tucked under the umbrellas. A hard-fought victory today in Fayetteville, with Denise Betsema moving up a spot from her finish in Waterloo into second place, and Clara Honsinger, the American, in third, and a spot on the podium today here in her home country.
And only 15 seconds separating first, second, and third. So you saw just how close that race was. I love these conditions, love the course, love how everything's working out. It's going to be a great race for the World Championships in January.
Let's hear from Marianne Vos.
Marianne Vos, vertel ons, wat was er aan de hand?
Goh, nou, ik zat bij Lucinda in het wiel en in de afdaling ging ik een bocht in en verloor de controle over de fiets. Dus ging ik onderuit, moest ik een fietswissel doen en vanaf daar was ik het eigenlijk kwijt.
Wat een battle weer al.
Ja, het was totaal anders dan zondag. Dat hadden we wel met de regen wel voorspeld. Maar ja, uiteindelijk wel inderdaad een mooie koers. Maar ja, dus, Lucinda trok in de laatste ronde goed door en ik kon het ritme niet meer oppakken.
Het was erg zwaar geworden. Hè? Het zoog echt aan jullie wielen. Je hoorde het bijna als jullie passeerden.
Ja, de klim die vanaf de lange afdaling naar de start of finish, die hakte behoorlijk in. En ja, eigenlijk de rest bolt ook niet meer zo lekker, dus het is inderdaad wel echt zwaar.
Wat mag het worden eind januari voor jou? Dit soort zware ondergrond of toch liever wat je vanmorgen zag? Hè?
Nou ja, we hebben het in ieder geval allebei goed verkend, dus ik denk dat het is zoals het is, hè, dat is veldrijden.
You'll be back at the end of January to take the World Championships?
Well, it's good to have seen the course in the different circumstances, and I hope to be back in the end of January.
Enjoy. Enjoy the watch.
Don't get that white microphone too close to the Muddy Rider. That thing would be soiled in a second. As you see, what is part and parcel of racing in these conditions in this sport. Mud covering faces, jerseys, legs, arms, hands. That's the postcard of World Cup Cyclo-cross, and made for a great race here today.
I've been so excited to see how this has played out. Lucinda Brand at the top of the list. Big win over Betsema, who really just snuck in there for second. Honsinger, huge story, moving through the field to catch third position, just 16 seconds behind. Vos Peters in the Dutch riders, fourth and fifth. Blanca Vos there in sixth. That rider is really one to look out for in the future. Rochette moving in there seventh, and then Katarina Nash in 10th. So I love seeing this list of riders now. You got the overall with the World Cup. Lucinda Brand dominating today, moving on up. Now that she's got a bigger gap over Vos. But Brand and Betsema, really, they're the ones who are going to be playing out for the remainder of the World Cup, and we'll see those riders maintain those positions in the top three.
Clara Honsinger of the U.S. right now 5th in the World Cup standings after 2 of 16 races. As far as today, the Dutch get 4 in the top 5, 6 of the top 10 places. And the women will now turn their attention to Iowa City on Sunday, while the men get set to tackle what is now a rather weathered course in Fayetteville. After the women went after it something good, they've created a very, how shall we say, used course.
Yeah, no, it's not a one-use course, thankfully. It's well prepared. What we're seeing for mud out there is really just the top layer And the riders, I think the biggest difference here is the last time the men were on course was as the rain was just starting. It wasn't through the entire race. It wasn't through the last couple hours of rain. And I think, Steve, if we look at the weather conditions, if it stops raining and starts to dry up a little bit, this mud is going to get really thick, and the race is going to be even different than what we just saw with the women.
Yeah, there you see that the rain has stopped on the start-finish line. It had been raining steadily and mostly heavily for the last 3 or so hours. The men were out here riding earlier today before the women's race, so they rode in some of that rain and saw what the course looked like before the women went out, and now you see all of the mud that has developed. We will see if the rain does hold off the rest of the afternoon and it starts to dry out. It's not that warm, so I don't know how much it's actually going to dry out, but if it doesn't rain anymore, at least it'll dry out somewhat. However, more rain is in the forecast. It's supposed to, in fact, rain through the night here in the Fayetteville area of northwest Arkansas. But for now, one race down, one left to go here today. Lucinda Brand of the Netherlands, the world champion in the rainbow jersey, gets the victory. So in the first 2 races of the season, she has a second and now a first. Vos right here has a first and a fourth.
Just looking at Clara Honsinger with her 3rd place. That's her 4th World Cup finish. You know, she is still a young rider in the sport. Just got a note from the CEO of UCI Cycling, Rob DiMartini, and just a lot of exclamation points, incredible pride in watching one of our own do so well here at a home race. That, yeah, Steve, right there. I'm not really sure how to describe that other than you probably think that a car doesn't feel the same things that you feel as a human. But it's one way to get it done. I mean, it definitely works.
Well, it beats going through the drive-through. You have the flaps coming over the top of the windshield and everything. You don't have to deal with that. But let's just say that this isn't the shower back at the Four Seasons. This is the quickie rinse down before the podium. As you try to look presentable, they put on some dry jerseys and clothes and do what they can here before the podium presentation. The 3 Dutch women, Vos, Betsema, and the winner Brand, joined by the American Clara Honsinger. There is Clara in the Stars and Stripes. What a result, though, for Honsinger. Consider that in Waterloo, in the first World Cup on Sunday, she finished in 12th, 137 behind Vos. She finishes 10 seconds ahead of Vos today and had to hold her off there at the very end, last lap, in order to get onto the podium. Now, Vos may have been fading a little bit, but still, if you're a young American like Honsinger, you've got maybe the greatest individual to ever ride a bike right behind you, and you're fighting for the final sliver of the podium. You hold her off. This is a big deal for her. This is quite an achievement.
Oh, it's huge. And you know, a lot of riders, they show different attributes. And I think one thing that's clear, anyone who knows Clara, anyone who's watched her develop over the last few years, knows that the harder the race is, the better she does. And just give her time to warm that engine up and get going, and she'll just keep mowing through the field all the way to the front. And you know, if this race went another lap, she would have been right there in second position ahead of Betsema, who's chatting with now. So huge talent. Clara Honsinger looking forward to a great season. You know, the races that are here are different. It's a you know, these 3 races in the U.S. swing of the World Cup, very different from Waterloo to today, and then on to Iowa City over on the weekend, which will be a very hilly, lots of ups and downs. Who knows about the weather conditions there, but you know, this is a season-long battle. These 3, we'll hopefully see those riders on the podium once again.
Ladies and gentlemen, from 3rd place from the United States of America, she races for the Cannondale, presented by Cyclo-cross World Cup.
Honsinger taking her spot on the podium.
The 24-year-old from Corvallis, Oregon, student at Oregon State. Going back a few years, Clara Honsinger became the first new U.S. Women's Elite National Champion in 15 years, following all of those wins by Katie Compton. Honsinger finally broke through became national champion. Now she's on a World Cup podium along with Denise Betsema, who's on a podium for the second straight race here in the U.S. The Dutch rider goes from third in Waterloo to second in Fayetteville. And that clears the way for the winner, Lucinda Brand.
The winner today in Fayetteville, Arkansas, USA for the women from the Netherlands. She races for the Baloise Trek Alliance. Let's welcome up Lucinda Brand.
A worthy winner of this first ever World Cup in Northwest Arkansas.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lucinda Brand from the Netherlands for the Baloise Trek Alliance.
Lucinda Brand really finding that she's great in the sand. She's great in fast courses. She works really hard for her track Segafredo teammates on the road season. Valued teammate in the different races that they take part in. Now focusing on her own racing in cyclocross. The Baloise Trek team showing up with a large squad with these 3 races in the U.S. Lots of support there from the home sponsor
Your
track.
new leader of the World Cup, Lucinda Brand.
Taking home the spoils, maintaining that leader's jersey, building a larger lead over Voss. So she's really setting herself up for a great return to Europe, as long as she has a good race this weekend in Iowa City.
And now the Dutch national anthem coming up from here in Fayetteville.
As we will pause for the national anthem of the Netherlands. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Lucinda Brand, Denise Betsema, Clara Hunsinger, your champions here at the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup, Fayetteville, Arkansas, USA.
Well, Tim, as we get set to close things out for this women's race, your final thoughts on the first ever World Cup edition from here in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas?
I think the riders answered a lot of questions about the course, about how the conditions were, what they could be like. You know, January here in this area could be warm, could be wet, could be snowy, it could be anything. But at least now they know what the course really looks like and feels like under their bikes, and they're going to go home, back to Europe, prepare to return and go for that World Championships.
All right, the men's race still to come, but for now, for Tim Johnson, I'm Steve Schlanger. Thanks for joining us as Lucinda Brand wins the first ever Women's World Cup on the UCI Cyclo-cross calendar to ever be held in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Let's welcome up Sharon Van Androy. Again, our flowers being presented by Molly Ron, CEO of Experience Fayetteville.
Sinds jouw verhaal van dit.